We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Andrew Doyle. In a moment, it'll be time for Headliners, where I'll be taking you through tomorrow's newspapers with the help of two of the country's most talented and affordable comedians. But before then, it's the headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Thank you, Andrew. The top stories this hour. The Texas Governor Greg Abbott says he is livid at being misled by local police over their response to the massacre at a primary school in Uvalde. A gunman killed 19 children and 2 of their teachers before he was finally shot dead by police officers. But it took them more than an hour to storm the school and stop the attack. The state's chief safety official admitted police got it wrong, waiting too long. Abbott said he'd been misinformed about the response and insisted the situation would be thoroughly investigated.
The information that I was given turned out, in part, to be inaccurate. And I'm absolutely livid about that. There are people who deserve answers the most. And those are the families whose lives have been destroyed. They need answers that are accurate.
Well, here a Conservative MP has submitted a letter of no confidence in Boris Johnson following the publication of the Sue Gray report this week. Sir Bob Neill, who chairs the Commons Justice Committee, said the Prime Minister's explanations for his behaviour lacked credibility. That comes after the Tory MP Paul Holmes resigned as Parliamentary Private Secretary to the Home Office, saying it was because of the toxic culture at Number 10. And the Deputy Labour leader, Angela Rayner, has accused the Prime Minister of trying to save his own skin by changing the Ministerial Code. Ministers will no longer automatically lose their job for minor violations. Instead, the Prime Minister can choose to order a lesser sanction, including a public apology or a salary suspension. And that comes as the Prime Minister himself faces an inquiry by the Commons Privileges Committee into whether he misled Parliament over Partygate.
This is clear the Prime Minister's running out of road and he's desperately trying to save his own skin. It's up to Conservative MPs now to do something about this, to protect our democracy and say that enough is enough. You know, you can't carry on like this. You can't keep breaking the rules and then when you don't like the rules, you change them.
Well, in news away from home, Ukrainian soldiers in the final pocket of resistance in the eastern Luhansk province may have to retreat to avoid being captured by Russian forces. In a telegram, the governor of Luhansk said the region will not fall in the coming days as soldiers have enough strength to defend themselves and continue. But Russian-backed separatists say they have captured the strategic town of Liman, which is a railway hub too. Ukraine's presidential advisor says the offensive in the east of the country shows Moscow has been driven back from its attack on the capital. So, after 6 weeks of testimony, the jury has been sent out to consider their verdicts in the US defamation lawsuits which Johnny Depp and Amber Heard brought against each other. Depp sued his ex-wife for almost £40 million and argued she defamed him when she called herself a public figure representing domestic abuse. Amber Heard countersued for nearly £80 million when Depp's lawyer branded her accusation a hoax. If a decision isn't reached today, the jury will return on Tuesday. On TV, online and on your radio via DAB+, you're with GB News, and now it's Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Andrew Doyle, and joining me tonight are Leo Kearse and Josh Howie. How are you both? Can I just say that I congratulate you on that bright, kaleidoscopic shirt.
Thank you very much.
You're so extreme, Leo. You're a provocateur.
Right. Well, I mean, actually, Hawaiian shirts have been linked to, I'm sure I read a Guardian article, they've been linked to Hawaii, but also...
Studies are suggesting.
But also, I think, either white supremacy or alt-right.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah.
Because of you?
No, not because of me, and apparently in America.
Are you sure you're not a trendsetter?
I think it's just because, they sell them in the places
Let's leave those connotations on the back burner and move on very swiftly and look at tomorrow's front pages. And we're going to start with the Daily Mail, which leads with Queen's Jubilee olive branch to Harry and Meghan. So the Queen will be welcoming Harry and Meghan at the Jubilee celebrations and, of course, Lilibet. On to Saturday's Daily Telegraph, which leads with, we've got to move on or we'll die. It's Tory MP's son on the front line. So this is a former Royal Marine who has saved a fellow Briton during a battle in Ukraine after their unit was ambushed. Saturday's Independent goes with PM accused of changing rules to save own skin. And there's a picture there of the memorial at the aftermath of that horrible school shooting in America. On to Saturday's Guardian now. Fury as PM changes code of conduct to save his skin there. That's more. We're going to be talking about that later on. Boris Johnson changing the rules there for his own benefit, potentially. Saturday's FT Weekend has EY weighs listing for an advisory arm. Also there, police face parents' anger. That's the more on Texas. And some of the parents suggesting that the police should have intervened sooner. Saturday's Mirror has Heirs to the Future. That's the Queen's Jubilee finale plan, which will include Charles, Wills and George. On to Saturday's Express. That leads with holiday hell, and it's going to get worse. And this is about the half-term holidays and the various chaos at airports that were going on yesterday, and they will exacerbate by all accounts. On to Saturday's Sun. Andy's 3 in a bed, but they all fell asleep. This is Andy Carroll, apparently passed out in a hotel bed with 2 blondes during his raucous stag do. Sounds like a success to me. And finally, Saturday's Daily Star has relax. Half-term getaway hit by road and airport chaos. And those are tomorrow's front covers. But to kick us off, we've got some good news in Saturday's Guardian with Boris's claim that we are not heading into a recession, Leo.
Yeah,
Cause for celebration, right?
Boris says we're not heading into a recession, and let me tell you, that man never lies. You can put that in the bank. I'm going to take out a bet that this definitely happens. So, I mean, obviously we're in some sort of dicey economic straits at the moment. We've got spiralling inflation. The official rate is 9%, but the real rate is something around 15%. And we've got the coming food crisis. But Boris says that we're not not necessarily heading for a recession, so he's announced this £15 billion package to deal with rising energy bills that will also stimulate the economy. But he says there are other things that are incredibly exciting coming up. So he says if we have a proactive approach to talent from abroad, so we control immigration but also allow people to come in, which doesn't sound like controlling immigration. We fix our energy supply issues and we fix issues in the UK labour market. Things will be good. And in fairness, we do have pretty much an all-time low unemployment rate at the moment. It's 3.7%, I think.
Yes, but I mean, Boris Johnson's predictions haven't known for being... I mean, last year he was talking about how fears of inflation were completely unfounded, and what is it now, 9%?
Yeah.
People saying it's going to go up to double digits very soon. I mean, he's not Nostradamus, is it? That's not his skill. Josh, what do you think about all this?
Well, yeah, but him saying the low unemployment rate, the problem is that a lot of the people in those jobs aren't earning enough to pay for the basic bills. So that it doesn't really matter if those people are employed or not. If they can't actually live off what they're earning with their actual jobs, they're in trouble.
I mean, do you think with the cost of living crisis and with this announcement from Rishi Sunak that he's going to do all he can to bail us out, to help us out? He's going to double the amount of money that we get. I think it was 200 before, now it's going to be 400.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is something that is going to work?
I don't know. I mean, the Tories have traditionally been a sort of low-tax, low-spend government, and now they're just throwing that out the window. I mean, the last 2 years, they've just been printing money, handing money out.
They've become a socialist government.
They've become a socialist government. They've stolen all the sort of popular ideas from the Labour Party. So all the Labour Party's left with is arguing over what a woman is. And
those are the important questions, though, let's be honest.
But I don't know, the problem is that, and I've said this before, it's not targeted. Right. Giving everybody £400, and even people with second homes, is ridiculous. Like, they are doing... to be fair, they are going to also have extra money for people who need it, but just giving everybody £400 isn't necessarily the answer here. Also, and I said this, and this is the best thing about being on the show, is that, like, normally I'd be in the pub and I'd be arguing with mates, and then the exact thing that I said happens. And I say, I told you that like a couple of months ago. And they go, no, you never said that. Well, I got this on record. I'm going to go and find the clip of it. And I said that Sunak should have, when they voted a couple of weeks ago in Parliament to not do the windfall tax, I was like, that is a ridiculous thing, because he's just going to do it in the end anyway, and it's going to look at that point like he looks behind the times, he's just following Labour. They should have got ahead of it months ago when this was first proposed and done it then.
And what they need to do now is secure our food and secure the world's food by removing the Russian blockade on Ukrainian ports. So send the Navy in there, sink some Russian ships.
You've got all the answers and you've got all the prophecies, and people they can go onto our YouTube channel and they can check it out. Although, to be fair, Josh, you do get a lot wrong as well. That's the downside of that. To be fair, but
we'll see. I'm going to go through and we'll find out.
You're going to prove me wrong, Mother Shipton. OK, let's move on now. Saturday's Telegraph. It looks like the taxpayer has another large bill looming. Josh, this is exactly what we need, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to have an extra £13.5 billion onto the taxpayers because of increased pension payouts. Because Sunak has also basically said that this whole triple lock thing going up with inflation, it stopped it, what was going on with COVID, but now it's going back up. And because, obviously, inflation has gone up 10%, that means that everybody's pensions are going to go up about 10%.
This does strike me as an important cost, though, doesn't it? I mean, isn't it the sign of a civilization that we look after our elderly and, that people
Absolutely,
are protected?
but there's obviously different pensions here, and according, to how old you were, the people who are a bit older, they're getting a lot more for their money they invested, and we are then paying for it.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people in that generation who are incredibly wealthy because they were around at the right time when jobs paid a lot of money. You could buy a house for relatively, a cheap amount of money compared to average earnings, and they've kept that equity and it's grown hugely. So, we're sort of, it's falling on the burden of working people now who are suffering under the cost of, rising energy prices and inflation and all the rest of it. And so they're paying these rich people to sit around in the gardens. I don't know, just part of me thinks, couldn't we just let COVID do a bit more?
Goodness me. Aren't you saying then that we're rewarding them because they lucked out and actually they should...
Yeah.
Well, but to be fair, they had the hardships as well, didn't they? They didn't have Netflix.
Well,
various, they grew up at a harder time.
But it's called the golden generation. It's that year, 1948, I think. And everything that they've had since then, like rationing ended, they became teenagers in the 60s, there was the pill, Freesat, they had everything, house prices, everything is like worked out for that generation.
And we live in an age where we're going to run out of fish antibiotics are going to stop working.
Yeah.
We're all going to perish. No, you're right. Tax them. They shouldn't get anything. They should be punished.
By the way, our viewership just halved.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's worth it. That's the cost.
But they're the only people who can afford television anymore.
Well, exactly. Anyway, on to Saturday's Guardian next. And big energy firms don't like the sound of the new windfall tax. Well, that's hardly a surprise.
So
they've got to pay a lot of money and they're upset about it.
More taxes from our allegedly pro-business Conservative government. So obviously Sunak has backtracked on his plans to have this energy windfall tax. There's
As
going to be
predicted by Josh.
a £5 billion levy on energy companies, which wasn't the energy companies didn't help themselves by. I think the BP executive came out and said, "No, we can deal with this. We've got loads of money." It's like that's not a good thing to say when the government.
Why they said it, and now they're complaining that.
It's Shell. It's Shell that are complaining. So basically, oil and gas insiders have reacted with surprise that the levy will remain in place until normal conditions in the energy market return, or until the end of December 2025. So this is creating some uncertainty. I mean, on the other hand, Sunak has also introduced tax breaks. So for every pound you invest in oil exploration, you get.
So I think it's renewables, isn't it? Oh no, it's not renewables.
It's renewables. It's also oil exploration because they're saying that this is their defence, isn't it? This is saying that why they shouldn't be taxed in this.
And this is basically what we need. We need to encourage oil exploration and development of these fields. We're sitting on all this oil, but we're at Russia's mercy at the moment. So we need to get that oil out of the ground and burn it in large engines. Driving SUVs.
Or ever the environmentalists. Josh, do you have any thoughts on this particularly?
Yeah, I just think that Shell. Of course, they're going to complain about it, but at least they're sort of doing it in a slightly nicer way. BP has sort of said that they're going to review its North Sea investment plans if the levy is not a one-off thing.
Okay.
So there's a bit more of a threat coming from BP, but their shares have only gone down like 1 or 2%.
But here's the thing. I mean, exactly.
Well, they've been rising over the. I mean, I've got shares in BP and Shell, and they've been shooting up over the last year.
He's not. What's a wheeler dealer? I didn't know about you.
I bought a bunch during lockdown when they plummeted because oil went into negative value.
So
for a
you
while.
do the stocks?
I
didn't.
Yeah, but how did you have spare money?
I lose loads of money on them as well.
It's a gambler.
I might as well just spend it on lottery tickets.
But look, right. So the problem I have with this is that we had last week this news about the investors revolting at Shell because they were angry that the chief executive was getting, what was it, a £13.5 million payout. We've had reports recently of massive bonuses with the big oil companies, right? So they're doing fine. And like you say yourself, they're boasting. They're boasting about all this money. So why shouldn't they be taxed?
They're not doing fine, though. I mean, oil was very, very cheap for a very long time, so it really hurt these companies. And when people think, it's just millionaires making money off these companies, it's not. It's pension funds, unions, all the rest of it. So it really affects all of us. And, all right, there's some good times now. I mean, relatively good times. Oil price has gone up, quite a bit. But that's quite a short-term thing. And also the oil price was low for a very long time. So there's been a lack of investment in any developing new sources of oil and gas.
OK, well, you need to think more carefully about your investments, I think. That's incredible that you do that. I didn't know that about you. Anyway, sticking with The Guardian now. So Boris is making some changes in Whitehall. Josh, you've got this one, I believe?
Yeah, so this is the front cover on quite a few newspapers. They sort of said basically, to save his own skin. So this is the classic. this is just the classic thing where changing the rules for the rules that he's already broken.
So can this be right, though? Because this reminds me of... Do you remember in 2008, when Berlusconi in Italy, he had the law changed so that he couldn't be held accountable. He had immunity from prosecution. He did it himself. It was so brazen. But you expect it of someone like Berlusconi. Is that what he's doing here?
Yeah, and you expect it... And the sad thing is you expect it of someone like Boris Johnson. I mean, how many times are you going to do these kind of transgressions? And people we're just shrugging now.
So what specifically? So, Leo, what is it? So he's changing the ministerial code?
Yeah, so you don't need to stand down. You can take a cut in salary if you breach the ministerial code.
If you lie.
Yeah, basically lie. If you do something that he's definitely going to do at some point in the future. But this is at a time when the government's bringing in legislation that restricts the civilians' freedom, restricts citizens' freedom. So we've got the policing bill, the online safety bill, and these are hugely restrictive laws on long-held freedoms. But while they're doing that, they're chipping away at parliamentary democracy by lifting any restrictions on themselves.
I find this so surprising because it's not just lying, is it? It's that if you knowingly mislead the House of Parliament.
Well, although that's the difference. He's saying that what he's taken away is lacking openness and honesty. Like, that's now being changed.
Right.
But still, if a minister knowingly misleads the House of Commons, that is still a resignation matter. But the thing is, when it comes to Boris Johnson, like, he's a great liar, and great liars believe the thing. So if I say, I love Leo's shirt, you know, you can tell that I'm massively lying.
Whereas I actually do love Leo's shirt. That's the difference between you and I.
Do you, though?
I do, but then I'm colourblind, I've got no taste.
I just wish I had the self-confidence to dress like a 14-year-old skateboarder.
You know what?
This is how we do.
I love both of your looks.
You should have a snapback cap and sideways.
I do wear a snapback cap.
I know, I like the ostentatious pimp look, but I also like that kind of insipid, bland, functional look.
Thank you, Gap.
Both of those are good and worthy.
Good lying there.
I'm a great liar. Let's move on. Saturday's Times next, and yet more Tory MPs are turning against Boris Johnson, it seems. Leo, you've got this one.
Yeah, so Boris has suffered his first resignation since the publication of Sue Gray's report into lockdown-breaking parties. So a Tory MP has accused him of presiding over a toxic culture in Number 10. This is Paul Holmes, the Conservative MP for Eastleigh. He's resigned from his junior government role as a parliamentary private secretary to Priti Patel, the Home Secretary. And also there have been, in the past couple of days, there have been letters of no confidence.
I think five.
So there were 3 in one day. So there were 3 Tory MPs in one day, all sent a letter to the 1922 committee to Sir Graham Brady, and you have to get 54 letters before you get.
I think they got 22-ish.
They've got 22 so far, right? But they would just need 54 to break the threshold.
Yeah.
And do they just sit there? So it's not like they get withdrawn.
I think you can withdraw them.
Right.
Yeah.
So they need to.
But they're building up, aren't they? The mountain is rising.
Yeah. It'll reach a tipping point because Boris has got away with a lot. He's dodged a lot of bullets so far. So, we're sort of... let's see what happens next week. Boris seems certain it's all going to get better.
Well, he always is, ever the optimist. But, isn't there a sense in which he is going to run out of time? One of the things... People are genuinely shocked about this within the party. This Paul Holmes MP, he's specifically saying that he's angry, especially about the abuse to the cleaners, to the staff there. And it does ring a little bit like the Bullingdon Club writ large. You remember there were all those stories about the Bullingdon Club, about how they used to trash restaurants and just write a cheque and say, and of course Boris Johnson comes from that background. He was in the Bullingdon Club, and so I think people are not just sick of it on a moral level, but they also don't like the way that the public perception is being skewed about their party. And I don't know whether he can, mind you, I always say this, I don't know if he can survive this. Yeah. And he always survives it, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he always does.
Yeah, but they're right in that people are repulsed by their behaviour. Seeing those photos, and you know what was the most damning thing about them was just how much alcohol was there. It was just everywhere.
Yeah. English people are so...
that was just breakfast for you.
Yeah, if it was bottles of Iron Brew, you'd be like, hey!
I was just amazed people left it all open. If that was a Scottish party with in the Scottish Parliament, it would be in carrier bags between people's legs.
I'm sure.
Just keep it.
At Holyrood, they probably supply every parliamentarian with Buckfast, don't they, before every meeting?
And it's paid for by England as well.
As it should be. Saturday's Times again, and now is probably not the best time for the National Rifle Association to hold a convention. Josh, do you know what? They always do this, don't they?
Yeah, well, they always hold in conventions. But this is in Texas, in the same state where this shooting happened. And
the school shooting.
The school shooting, yeah. And the video that's been coming out today has just been... One of the most horrible things to see was there were parents arguing with the police, getting arrested by the police who are waiting there. Then there are these logs that have come out from 911 of the children calling the police, saying, where are you, over this kind of 40-minute period. And these police were just waiting outside. So they were stopping the parents getting in.
This is really important because after Sandy Hook, they changed the rules. So the rules were that the police would set up a perimeter and they would wait for the SWAT teams, right? And then they changed those rules after Sandy Hook, and they were meant to go in. You're meant to go in, right? And the police have said that they were concerned for their safety. They were, when you sign up for the police force, if there are kids in danger of their lives, you've made that commitment. You go in, and exactly what you say, seeing parents being handcuffed, because they're terrified.
And some of the police went in and got their own children.
No.
Yeah,
really?
there's someone put out a statement. One of the police statements said,
"Is that an allegation?"
No, that was the words of one of the policemen said. We went in and checked and then they got 2 of their own kids out or something. One of the policemen.
So what about this, Leo? About the NRA? Because the thing about the NRA, now I know that this convention was organised before the massacre occurred, but sometimes there have been cases where there have been massacres, school massacres, and the NRA have deliberately stage a convention in the aftermath. Right, this is something that they do. Don't you think that it would just, but basic human compassion would dictate that you stop it?
It's become an incredibly politicised issue in America, and an incredibly partisan issue.
It's not become, though. It
is. But
decades
it wasn't 200 years ago. 200 years ago, owning a gun to protect yourself from your own government was a good idea. But, you know, obviously now that 18-year-olds can get hold of AR-15s, you know, automatic weapons,
these are self-reloading weapons. These are weapons.
But the scary thing is, every time there's a threat, every time it looks like the Democrats are going to, or whoever's in government is going to increase gun control, they sell way more guns and way more ammo because people want to stockpile it before the gate comes down.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's an argument that I've always tried to understand because I just, for the life of me, I just sort of think the access to guns must be part of the problem here. I understand the other side of the argument, which is if the government turns tyrannical, you have to have means to defend yourself. But ultimately, this doesn't happen in other countries.
And also, if the government turns tyrannical, I mean, an 18-year-old with an AR-15, or even a bunch of guys with AR-15s, aren't going to be able to do anything.
Well, they're doing pretty good in Ukraine.
Yeah, but they're armed by the government. They're armed by the US government.
There are some insane things that are coming out. You must have seen. I know we can say the word, the D-I-L-D-O word. Are we allowed to say that?
Well, let's just spell it.
Okay, then we spelt it. Yes. Well, anyway, if you got that, if you could spell, then you'll know that you can have in Texas you can own 5 of those, but you can have an infinite amount of AK-47s.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, how many holes have you got?
Goodness me, I think we'd better go to a break on that. I need to recover. That's the end of part 1. Coming up after the break, we've got Nicholas Sturgeon is in a spot of financial trouble. Tony Blair is making a comeback. And Winnie the Pooh has become a serial killer. You won't want to miss that.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio. On digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Andrew Doyle. Still with me as we dive into part 2 are comedians Leo Kearse and Josh Howie. Kicking things off in part 2, we have Saturday's Telegraph, with the Scots looking like they are in need of money. Leo?
Not the Scots, the SNP, the government that rules over the Scots
an important
at the moment. It's an important distinction.
You're best friends, right?
I'm a Scot, but they don't speak for me. So Nicola Sturgeon, basically, she's, I don't know if you know, but the Barnett formula means that Westminster gives Scotland an extra £15 billion, more than, is raised in taxes in Scotland, to pay for extra stuff, to pay for over all the cracks and the SNP mistakes. But now, on top of that, Nicola Sturgeon is going to be begging Whitehall for £3.5 billion more because she's pledged. Basically, she can just make up whatever she wants, and she knows Westminster will just hand over the dosh. So she's pledged to overspend in Scotland by £640 per person on top of the Barnett formula. And bear in mind, this is against a backdrop of absolute cataclysmic failure on every level by the Scottish Government. So the SNP have failed on health, they've failed on education, drug deaths have rocketed up. I think they're 5 times higher than they were when the SNP came to power. Life expectancy is dropping in Scotland, and there's this huge budget deficit, and it's ridiculous. I think instead of handing over this money, Westminster should maybe just make the SNP pay their own way, and then the people of Scotland can see what an independent Scotland, have a little taste of an independent Scotland.
I think for balance, we're going to have to go to a pro-SNP perspective, potentially. I mean, so all of these horrible things happening.
Sure.
Life expectancy lowering, so now it's, 30 rather than 35? So what do you make? Josh, are you defend the SNP here?
Sure, yeah. The SNP are rubbish.
Well, wait, it does seem like that's quite a miscalculation, but they're just not doing the maths.
Well, the funny thing about the maths is that they had these projections and they said that actually it could be between a 10 billion shortfall or a 4 billion surplus.
Right.
And the people who were saying that that it's probably going to be like 3.5 billion shortfall, they said it almost certainly overstates the degree of uncertainty, i.e. they could have just said, yeah, we could have a 10 billion shortfall, or we could have a £1 trillion surplus. We don't know. It's like, well, yeah, it's going to be about 3.5 billion.
But the thing is, the SNP spends so much time slagging off the UK, saying they want to get out, and then they're going in a very arrogant way saying, well, you're going to give us all this. This feels like an abusive relationship.
It is, yeah. I mean, devolution has created this sort of satellite parliament that just fights back against Westminster. And the irony is that devolution was supposed to create these sort of caretaker governments that would deal with local issues, and instead they don't. The SNP just care about one issue, and that's independence.
Well, can I ask you, isn't this an issue, though, that there is effectively a one-party state in Scotland?
Yeah.
Right? And this is, and I know that a lot of the SNP's policies are detested by a lot of their voters, but because independence is the thing that sort of lures them in, it means they can never really lose. I mean, the Tories and Labour are nowhere up there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the benefit of a single-issue party. And also, a single issue that you say, oh, if we get to this point, if we get to this golden oasis over the Rainbow Bridge, then everything's going to be wonderful. Obviously, if Scotland ever got independence, it would quickly stop being a wonderful thing.
Look, Scotland, look at what happened with Brexit. Beware what you wish for.
I'm not going to let Josh get on his Brexit high horse again, because he does that most nights. Saturday's Guardian next. And there's trouble at the Ministry of Defence, Josh.
Yeah, so 6 Irish Guards have been held on drugs and money laundering offences. The Irish Guards are actually the most operationally active unit in the British Army over the last few years. Their punishment, and this is really quite horrible for them, I feel really bad, but they're not going to get to take part in the Queen's Platinum Jubilee parade. I mean, they are really...
They're going to be gutted.
They are, they could have been standing there all day in their dress uniforms, boiling hot, fainting.
They would have rather had the execution.
And now they have to take all those drugs and money launder instead.
I mean, do you know what? It seems like a fair punishment to me, because you have to be able to march in formation at these things, right?
Yeah,
and
they'll be like disco. They'll be looking at his shirt. Oh, wow, that's trippy, man.
You're not going to let the shirt go.
Have you ever taken drugs?
No.
Any thoughts on this, Leo?
I don't think they let them keep the drugs.
Don't they?
Oh, really?
I've just got a hunch that when they catch them for stuff like this. So, yeah, they'll be sitting taking no drugs, unless they got some new drugs.
Well, let's not speculate. Saturday's Times and an old face in politics is hoping to make a comeback. it seems, Leo. Well, he never went away, did he?
Yeah, Tony Blair, he keeps popping up like the ghost of a werewolf who's committed terrible crimes. So, yeah, he's 69 now. He's part of the Britain Project, which is described variously as a think tank or possibly a new party. I don't know if it'll do as well as... What was it? There's
Change UK.
Change UK.
Well, by the way, two of the MPs from Change UK are part of this initiative.
Right.
So this bodes well, doesn't it? Because that worked out fantastically well. I think Change UK lasted about as long as a bottle of milk.
Yeah, they got about 4 people to turn up to their press conference.
And that was it.
What
exactly is Tony Blair saying here? He's saying it's not a new party, right?
It's not a new party. It's a think tank at the moment. He wants to fill the gaping hole of ideas in British politics and bring debate back to the centre ground at the conference next month with prospective speakers including Ruth Davidson, the former head of the Tories in Scotland, who's actually great and gave the Tories a chance when she was there. There's Martin Lewis, the money-saving expert, and he hopes President Macron of France. So these centrists are going to get together. But let's not forget that Tony Blair's been responsible for some of the worst ideas in British political history. We've had devolution, faith schools, the Iraq War. This isn't a man with.
Yeah, but also their government did do a lot of good. So
they did a lot of good on social issues,
the
education.
They spent money that they didn't have. Anybody can spend money they don't have. The Tories do it all the time.
Well, they did have it. They left the government with a surplus when they went out.
Well,
not when they went out, but
the PPE stuff.
I'm not saying they're perfect, but
they found ways of getting off the balance.
I'm not saying they did perfect, But my big idea is bring back Gordon Brown. That's my.
I don't think he wants to come back, to be fair. But this is an interesting thing. Why is he saying we're going to bring this back to the centre? What does he think Keir Starmer is exactly? Keir Starmer's not a radical. What do you think is there?
I think the thing is, and he is right about this, and as he says, is it's all about politics at the moment and not about ideas. And you can absolutely criticise Keir Starmer and say that. Where are the ideas coming from to move things forward? And I'm not hearing it from the Tories, I'm not particularly hearing it from Labour either. Where are the long-term plans now for moving this country to the next level?
The government, all that needs to happen for this country to move forward peacefully and develop new ideas is for the government to not be involved. The government should just step back, stop getting when there's Arts Council grants go to comedy issues. I mean, this is the industry that we know about. It goes to the worst open mic comedians who know how to fill in forms. You just create this bureaucratic system where form fillers can get their hands on the money. We need to stop that. Just lower taxes for everybody and let people do it themselves off their own initiative.
I think it's fascinating that Tony Blair has this idea that he's much more popular than he actually is.
Yeah.
Because he comes along and people are saying that this is the Britain Project. They're modelling it on Marche, the Emmanuel Macron party. It's a totally different kettle of fish. Macron's really charismatic. He named his own party after his own initials. On Marche, Emmanuel Macron, so maybe Tony Blair could have TB, tuberculosis. Tuberculosis would be a great name for his party.
Well, look, he won 3 elections. I've seen when I see him do a little online video thing, he talks a lot of sense as well. He's not an idiot.
No, he did, but he's become so like Leo says, he's become so toxic with the Iraq War. Yeah. Particularly, I have to say, with people on the left. And of course, Blair never claimed to be on the left.
Well, then maybe he should start a new party. Everybody will hate him. And then that'll sort of draw everybody towards voting Labour.
Really?
We'll see.
You wish. OK, on to Saturday's Daily Mail. And this airline company is saying goodbye to the old-fashioned Mr. and Mrs. You're married, Josh. What's this about?
Well... because I know more misses than you.
You know about the concept of Mr. and Mrs. I don't know.
Mr. and Mrs. No, it's ladies and gentlemen is being taken. Ladies and gentlemen will be taken away now. When they say ladies and gentlemen, good morning, they're now going to say passengers, good morning. And there's other companies that have already done this. British Airways have done it, Lufthansa. Ryanair could introduce good morning scum. This is your captain speaking. But the thing is, so they're doing it to not offend anybody or to be inclusive. But actually, ladies and gentlemen, if you think about it does work. Because it'd be you've got ladies for women and gentlemen for gentlemen, and then you've got the they people who are ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
So technically, you could just absolutely leave it. It's still inclusive.
This is a good point. So who exactly is it offending, Leo? Because if you are a trans person and you've transitioned to the other sex, you want to be known as a lady or a gentleman, right? So how does how does the lack of specificity of the phrase
there are also non-binary people.
Yeah, but they'd be ladies and gentlemen.
No, but they won't. Some people identify as neither a lady nor a gentleman.
But they do as both, don't they?
No, the non-binary people identify as neither, and some people identify as cake gender. And some people,
very
758 genders now. So
yeah, but you can't do that because if you rattled off all of the genders at the start of a flight, you'd never get off the tarmac.
You could do it while you're in the air.
You could. That could be the entire journey.
Yeah,
okay.
And then you get your safety briefing.
Well, I think this goes back to the point is, why are we worried so much about potentially offending a tiny, tiny, tiny minority of people simply by exercising customs that have been going on for decades that, to be honest, they're not going to be offended by?
But we're saying
it's not them, it's the people who are going to be offended on their behalf.
As ever.
But
that's who it's about.
But you're saying it's a tiny minority of people. I don't think it's going to be a tiny minority of people for long, because I think 21% of Generation Z now identify as some sort of LGBTQ.
Yeah, but they're mostly straight. And
they're all straight. They're all just doing it. But
it's just a way to exoticize being straight.
Yeah.
We had that for ages. This was our thing, and you straights have to come along and try and disturb it. It's people like you. But doesn't that tell you the rapid escalation of this kind of multiple identification thing? That it's a phase. The fact that it's risen so rapidly would suggest to me that it's not just that people are more comfortable these days with being who they are. It suggests more kind of social contagion, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's this generation's double denim.
Yeah, I mean, you're technically under the queer category with your shirts.
Yeah.
That's I dress like a 14-year-old boy. We're all queer now.
Sure, you look like a dodgy old man who goes and hangs around near the skate park.
Well, I did
with a box of puppies.
I do hang around there on the skate park because I used to be a skater.
Oh,
and I took my teenage son to the skate park to show him some moves.
Right, yeah.
Man, I fell so badly, and they were filming, and it's just me on my back, just in the worst pain I've ever been.
I want to see that video. Where's that video?
It's on my phone. So it's pain. It's pain.
Right, you're going to airdrop that to me, and we're going to play it tomorrow. Okay. I think that'd be brilliant. Sticking with Saturday's Mail, here is one that will turn childhood favourites into childhood nightmares. Leo?
Yeah, so another much-loved franchise is being tampered with. So fans of Winnie the Pooh have reacted with horror this morning after discovering the family favourite is going to be made into a horror movie in which Pooh and Piglet become sick serial killers. You might be wondering why this is happening, because this isn't the sort of traditional route for a children's story, but it's because the Winnie the Pooh stories came into the public domain earlier this year. So now anybody can make a film or a story about Winnie the Pooh, and
there's no copyright.
There's no copyright issues, and obviously we've seen much-loved franchises like Ghostbusters and Star Wars being tampered with. But this, I support this. I think it's great that anybody can do whatever they want. So if you don't like it, you don't need to watch it. You can go make your own one.
But I actually really love this, because I think it's a really fascinating idea, and I would watch this film because there comes a point where a franchise gets stale. You've got to reinvent it. Like with Child's Play with the Chucky doll, and then they brought in Bride of Chucky, and that made it really interesting and dynamic. And I love horror, so
wow.
I think this should happen.
That is so weird because you never really get popular references. Sometimes.
Oh, no, if it's horror films.
But horror films is your thing. That turns out to be your thing.
Not just horror films, but horror films that distort childhood memories. So, for instance, the Leprechaun films are fantastic. You think of a cute leprechaun, but it's Leprechaun in the hood.
I thought they were documentaries. I didn't realise...
Well, they were filmed as documentaries.
OK, I'm the opposite. I cannot watch those movies.
Really?
Like Chucky and all that, I genuinely get too scared.
Watch the first Leprechaun, Jennifer Aniston before the nose job. It's a really, that's horrifying in and of itself. But it's a really interesting film. But I think let's do this to Winnie the Pooh. Did you like Winnie the Pooh as a child? You care?
Yeah, absolutely. But there are some people who are absolutely, horrified by this. One Twitter user said that they're devastated by what's happening here. And I suggest them they should check out the new Ricky Gervais special because I think they really like that instead.
Yeah.
Now then, that is the end of part 2. But coming up after the break, we've got stories involving police dogs, dodgy Roman soldiers, and the correct pronunciation of Diplodocus, which I've almost certainly just said wrong. See you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio. On digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
with honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Andrew Doyle, and with me tonight, I have the wonderful Leo Kearse and Josh Howie as well. We're going to...
Why does he get wonderful?
Well, I just think he required an adjective. He made the effort with the shirt, so he requires special treatment, Josh.
Nice
Don't complain. You're always complaining. Let's crack on. Saturday's Times and children's authors having to watch what they write. Josh.
Yeah, this is a whole new phenomenon. Anthony Horowitz, best-selling children's author, he's speaking at the Hay Festival today, and he said that basically it seems like, but we know this to be true, anybody who's online will know that children's publishing is basically the scariest place to be an artist at the moment in terms of and he's a script writer, he works in TV, he does adult novels, and he's saying children's books is basically the most captured area of woke politics.
So from what I understand he's had his manuscript back and he's been told to change various
things,
And there's this thing in publishing, which a lot of people may not know about, called sensitivity readers. So publishing houses hire these readers, and what they do is they read your manuscript and they will tell you where you might have caused offence to various marginalised groups. And this is really common now, and it happened to Kate Clancy, the poet. She wrote an article about this, talking about some of the feedback she'd had. And let me give you an example. She's a poet, right? So she described a landscape as the deformity of the landscape, right? Which is a kind of poetic metaphor. And this person said, well, that might be offensive or disablist. Do you see what I mean? So they've got, but these people have no artistic strain. They've got no sense of metaphor, no sense of beauty, no sense of poetry. So this is really bad for artists, right, Leo?
Oh, absolutely. And it's bizarre that it's happening when children's books, on the other hand, seem to be showing a lot more sexualised content and a lot more adult references to gender and sexuality and things that you wouldn't normally expect a child to be aware of or discuss until it's older and approaching its teens.
Yeah, of course.
And the thing is that there just seem to be a lot of bullies. So there's already been a lot of people, women, children's authors who have been cancelled, who aren't as uncancelable as J.K. Rowling, who've already lost their jobs, who had to leave children's literature because of the bullying over the last few years for having gender-critical views. The other day, Anjali Rauf, who's a Muslim female writer, came out in support of Ricky Gervais' that bit of material, and she instantly got pounced on by other female writers and publishers and people who work for like book festivals and stuff like that, and they basically were instantly trying to get her cancelled. They were like tagging in her publishers. How are you letting this person do this? And this is a woman who's written a book called Hope on the Horizon about refugees and
she could have better left-wing credentials.
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw Rachel Rooney, another author, who was talking about completely outrageous bullying she's had in the industry. Gillian Phillip, who a children's author, who simply tweeted in support of J.K. Rowling. She was dropped by a publisher, by her agent.
Yeah.
She's retrained as a trucker and is, by all accounts, a lot happier for it.
Yeah.
She said that,
Probably richer as well.
Probably richer, but she did say that the trucking industry is far less misogynistic than that of children's literature. This is a serious problem. It's a problem
And this is what
in the publishing industry.
This is what our children are reading. What we're reading to our children.
We're reading what the bullies want them to read.
Yeah, absolutely. They're dumb. And he's saying here that he's scared now that he writes characters from different backgrounds to his. Basically, what's going to happen in the future is everybody's going to have to write a book where it's about themselves and they clone themselves. And those are all the different characters. And that's the only way that your perspective is going to be
that sounds
valid.
like a good story, but you could only read it the once, couldn't you?
Yeah. Well, it's going to go. Publishing is going to go the same way as comedy has. You know, everybody's going to have to blandify their content to make sure that they don't.
And no one's going to travel far because petrol's too high.
Saturday's Daily Mail has this important stories about dangers to press freedom. Leo, close to my heart.
Yeah, so we were talking earlier about the online safety bill. So the government is currently, I think, being debated by MPs, and the government have promised to strengthen the online safety bill so that social media platforms have to notify recognised news publishers if they intend to block or take down news content. So the online safety bill is basically to protect us from harm online, and that's classed as very sort of nebulously classed, because obviously websites can't reach through the screen and punch you in the face. So it's physical harm is things that encourage you to have eating disorders or self-harm, and
But it's not just that, is it?
And psychological harm is anything that makes you feel anxious or makes you feel so that could be basically anything.
Well, the Tories have talked about legal but harmful speech.
Harmful.
And they're putting the onus on the social media companies to remove the content, for otherwise, to be regulated, in other words, and if they don't, they're going to be fined. And isn't that just going to mean that the social media companies are going to just take down everything?
Yeah,
basically.
Because there's a risk. If you're a manager at a social media company, you're actually liable for prosecution yourself. It's not the company that pays, it's the individual people. So people will become incredibly risk averse. But also this with journalism, when they say a recognised news publisher, so the government gets to decide who's a recognised news publisher. So if you're a journalist or if you're a newspaper that, such as the New York Post that attacks the government, so as the New York Post did with the Hunter Biden laptop revelations, which turned out to be completely true and would have been hugely influential in the election, they got taken down from social media platforms. And in the future, the government could decide, oh wait, no, these people are criticising us. They're not proper news publishers, so they get banned from social media.
But my understanding is that what the MPs are saying in this story is that what they want to do is they want to implement protections within the online safety bill to ensure press freedom, to say basically that we wouldn't have a repeat of the New York Post Hunter Biden situation, because effectively they wouldn't just be able to remove, Twitter wouldn't be able to block a particular news story. I mean, so isn't this a good thing, Josh?
Yeah, it is a good thing, but it just seems like there's a lot of holes in it. I mean, look, it has to be there. I do think there needs to be some regulation, but it's a minefield.
And a lot of journalists, people just start up their own journalism, like Lotus Eaters, or there's a number of Rebel News.
I've seen your blog.
People just start up and start investigating things, and they can often say things that go against the mainstream narrative, and they're the people who get deplatformed by the government.
Well, let's move on to a very sad story now about a police dog who has passed away. This is in Saturday's Telegraph. Josh.
Yeah, the Met Police have paid tribute to a larger-than-life dog, Xavier Charles. So I'm guessing whoever named the dog was an X-Men fan. For anybody, Charles Xavier, and died chasing down some moped thieves who are truly despicable people. The moped thieves, by the way, because they do like hundreds of crimes within the hour or two.
Yeah, they do, don't they?
They're out there. Obviously, this is very sad. Died on duty. It's nice that they're paying tribute to him, and anything they can do to hunt down these moped peeps, please.
Oh, I mean, they are a nightmare.
Was he killed by them?
No, he had a heart attack.
It was a heart.
Yeah.
It's always sad, isn't it, when a dog loses?
Do we know if he'd had the vaccine?
Let's move on to the Saturday's Telegraph now. The police are also having trouble with seagulls, and this might lighten the mood. Somewhat, Leo.
Well, it depends if you like seagulls or not. So
We love
basically-
seagulls.
Basically, a police car has been put out of action so it can't go and catch those moped thieves that you're worried about because a pair of protected seagulls are nesting on its roof. They've had to cone off the patrol car in the seaside town of Bridport in Dorset to keep members of the public away from it. And they're unable to clear the nest because it's illegal to damage or destroy a bird's nest under the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981.
What, even a seagull?
Even seagulls. I mean,
loads of them.
I'd understand if they're golden eagles, but seagulls, what do they do for humanity? They come down, nick your chips. I saw one nick a potato waffle at Wetherspoons.
Oh, they're strong. I mean, I saw one pick a whole Sunday Times out of the bin with all the colour supplements as well. I tell you what, it was like the size of a pterodactyl. These things are terrifying.
I know, one of them got a taco from me in Brighton.
Tackle.
Still angry about that.
We don't like them.
No, but it's the perfect crime, really. If you were to put a bunch of birds' nests on cars and then go out and do a big bank robbing thing,
that is perfect.
And they can't do anything.
Don't give them ideas, Josh. But we've got a few more stories to get through. Let's see if we can. Keeping with the animal theme, Saturday's Independent has a story about a cat. Josh, we've done dogs, we've done birds.
Yes, so a man with autism who recently diagnosed with autism, whether self-diagnosed or not, see, as an adult, he's trying to take Sainsbury's to court for refusing entrance to his assistant's cat, which, as we know, is incredibly specious. They do allow in dogs. The cat had on a leash and was wearing a yellow vest, which suggests to me the cat is basically being tortured.
Well, the cat is... So this is a support cat, right?
His support... He says it makes him feel calm. It's not like there's any official documentation here. Basically, the cat makes him feel better.
Yeah, it's not like a seeing eye cat.
And I've got a support snake. And a sports spider. Why shouldn't I be allowed to take my sports spider? Yeah, that's what my wife calls it.
What? Goodness me. Why is a cat a choice for a support animal, though? Like, a dog would make sense. Cats are really selfish.
Well,
I mean, you get more empathy off a tropical fish.
Cats make a bit more sense than some, because some of the other support animals, because people take them on planes as well. There was somebody photographed with a peacock on a plane.
But the way he speaks about this cat is a little bit scary. She brings structure to my life. She wakes me up in the morning. She tells me when to go to bed. It's difficult to know how she feels about the relationship.
Well, sure, because she's a cat.
This is waking him up, telling him when to go to bed. I mean, this is
well,
maybe
look, enough of the animals. I'm over the animals for now. We're going to move on to Saturday's Daily Star next, bringing us another crazy story about sex and amnesia. We've all been there. I think we have, anyway.
Yeah, so he suffered amnesia within 10 minutes of a romp with his wife, which is great. Romp.
So this is an OAP, right?
OAP, yeah, man, a 66-year-old man. Good for him, having a romp at 66.
Good for him, absolutely.
Yeah, and he lost all memory of the previous 24 hours, and he thought he'd missed his anniversary. So that's the thing. He thought, like, oh, I've missed the anniversary. Now we know why he was having this romp, because it was his anniversary.
Oh, so it wasn't an excuse to say that
no.
I'd forgotten about your anniversary.
Yeah, it was like, unless she might be like messing with him.
So is this like a known thing?
This supposedly, yeah, it happened to him 7 years ago. Sorry.
It's happened a couple of times to him. So it's called recurrent postcoital transient amnesia associated with diffusion restriction.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Total global and it can be brought on by hot or cold water, emotional stress, pain, or sexual intercourse, which for me is all five, so...
Let's quickly move on before we get too many of those grisly details from Josh. Now, a historical piece in The Independent, and this man's thoughts about his incompetent colleague, they're now set in stone for all time. That's embarrassing.
That's right. So there's graffiti found in engraving
Wall
in Vindolanda. It's a Fortin settlement near the iconic Sycamore Gap of Hadrian's Wall, and it was written 1700 years ago. And so basically, a Roman soldier has carved a large phallus into the stone, and
he's also written a word that we can't say.
He's written the name. We can say it in Latin though. It's cacor.
Yeah, OK,
so if you want to run that through Google Latin translation...
Secundinus...
Go on.
Secundinus cacator?
Yeah, so you've sworn in Latin. I don't know if Ofcom has a Latin department, but if they do, they're going to be very, very upset about that.
Yeah.
That's right. So he's basically he's drawn a phallus. He's insulted this man, this Roman centurion, presumably, and they found it.
And they found it. And that's why, you know, if you do your graffiti with a chisel in stone, it's going to stay for 1700 years.
But this is
why
why
we're finding any sort of spray can stuff.
It's in The Independent. They've put stars in between the words to not about. Do you know what the word is? Because I still don't know what the word. I can't figure out what the word is.
Sometimes it's got.
Well, you learnt Latin, right?
Yeah, I do know what the word is. But I'm absolutely not going to.
I cannot work out something.
Something T-E-R.
Stranger?
But it's got a T-E-R in it.
I'm sure this is fascinating for the viewers at home. Let's just say that it's scrubber. It begins
someone-
with S and it ends with
Well,
ER.
if someone could tweet us and tell us what word that is, that would be
But
really cool.
if you go to Pompeii, I don't know if you've been to Pompeii, there are phalluses everywhere. There's graffiti. There's all sorts of stuff, and it really reminds you that these are just human beings like everything else. It just reminds you of how little changes.
We should go on holiday together, mate.
I've been trying to get that.
You want to get that Pompeii trip
since you
in.
started.
Yeah.
You and me in Pompeii. That's what.
Checking out those phalluses. Let's go.
It's a fascinating place. Well, that's because there's brothels and things, and they used to have this sense of they should have semi-pornographic art on display. They didn't mind about that stuff. They weren't so prudish. So this probably wasn't shocking at all. This was probably quite affectionate by their standards. Anyway, that's all we've got time for. Thanks so much to my guests Leo and Josh. And Headline is going to be back the same time tomorrow with the wonderful Mark Dolan. So we will see you then. Farewell.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed.